Joining me now, trial attorney Nicholas Fortuna. Thank you, Nicholas, for joining us. A lot to talk about. First things first, as a trial lawyer, do you tell the defendant to take the stand or not to take the stand, or does it really depend on the facts of the case?
In most instances, it doesn't help the defendant to take the stand. There are very limited circumstances where the defendant has to take the stand because there's an assertion of some sort of affirmative defense, let's say self-defense or provocation, or you want to prove that the intent that the prosecutor is charging you with as an element of the crime, in this case, murder in the first degree, cannot be met because of the circumstances of what happened at the time the crime was committed. But in most circumstances, the defendant is too vulnerable to cross-examination. The witness cannot control the proceedings in court once they're on the stand. It's too easy to make the defendant look bad through cross-examination. So only if it's absolutely necessary would you put the defendant, or the defendant should take the stand. In the circumstance where they're only going to say, "Oh, I didn't do it," that's not that helpful. That's clear from the defense what they're arguing against in the entire time. And traditionally, juries haven't held it against the defendant for not testifying. They don't necessarily need to hear the defendant say, "I did not do it." So it has to be something compelling to get the defendant to come to the stand.
So let's talk about, and you can see on your screen the 6 different individuals that there was just sound from them testifying that was played. I want to start with Henry Segura. And the reason that I want to start with him, Nicholas, is because you heard him get testy with the judge. I mean, he was not happy when the judge was trying to explain you cannot speak at the same time as someone else because we have a court reporter. What are you talking about? I'm a grown man. And he pushes back. He fights back. Now, I think that will not be favorable with the jury because it means to me, perhaps, he cannot control himself or hold his temper.
In addition to that, I agree with your analysis, but also people don't realize when they testify, whether it's as a defendant or any other circumstance, that showing anger doesn't mean it's righteous anger, that you know somebody's accusing you of something that you didn't do. So you show anger to, to allow the jury or the fact finder to see how strongly you feel about that accusation. That undermines the credibility of that defendant. Jurors tend, or fact finders, even judges, tend to find that the person is not credible if they can't control themselves on the stand. It might seem not logical, but the calmer you are, the more monotone you are, the more credible you'll come across.
So talking about that piece and the credibility, we saw 2 different defendants that I think testified in order to show to the jury their emotion, the crying, upset, remorse, or the "I am so meek and mild and therefore you shouldn't convict me because I don't have that demeanor to think that I really committed this crime." Are those things a reason to have your client, the defendant, testify so the jury sees them as those real people?
See, the problem with the testimony that you had just shown with the woman with her head bowed crying isn't what came across more, I think more powerfully, was that she wasn't looking in the eye of the questioner. She was afraid to look up. She looked more like she was hiding. There's so many subtle cues that you can't control as a defendant or a witness. So to take the stand so you can cry in front of the jury, there's a lot of reasons someone gets emotional. There's a lot of pressure on them when they're on the stand. So the jury isn't going to automatically assume you're crying because you're sincere. That person is facing, extreme penalties, jail, life in prison. The fact that they're crying is not surprising. The fact that she's not looking at her questioner makes it seem like she's hiding something.
Oh, what a great point. And Amber Geiger, she is the one who did shoot when she thought she was entering her own apartment, and she just is devastated, weeping, can't control herself. To your point, they may not be able to control their emotions. All right, Nicholas, I have one last question for you on this piece, and that is, what if you advise your client, definitely you should not testify. I think that the state hasn't met their burden. We don't want to put you on the stand. And your client says, I don't care what you say to me, Nicholas. I'm going to tell you I'm testifying.
You know, in the end, it's the client, the defendant's choice. If they are going to testify, and they want to testify at their trial, you have to let them. The only issue that the attorney has to be concerned about, or the defense attorney has to be concerned about, is if they know that their client is going to lie on the stand, they can't suborn perjury by assisting them. They can let the person take the stand and just give their narration, but they can't frame that testimony through questions or guide them through a story that isn't true if the attorney knows that story isn't true. So there are certain considerations the attorney has to take into hand before helping a defendant testify during trial.
Great points. Thank you for walking us through that. I know you're going to stay with us. Switching gears, over 4 months have passed since 2 toddlers went missing in California. The community, though, is not giving up hope. That's up next right here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
Shut the gate. Go in the house. Why did it take both of y'all to go in the house and leave them outside by themselves?
I understand.
And y'all know the gate was open.
Why haven't y'all been out with the people around this neighborhood looking with the kids?
We already told on camera.
I didn't see y'all on no cameras last night. I didn't even see y'all out here praying with them people. Them people was out to take care of my nephew. Not supposed to happen.
I understand.
Y'all was supposed to take care of my nephew.
I understand.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott. You just heard a family member expressing outrage at the adoptive parents of 2 toddlers, Orson and Orrin West. But the community in California is not giving up hope in the search for the 2 missing children. Now, Orson and Orrin West vanished from their home more than 4 months ago in December, and there have been no new developments in the case. But Bakersfield police are not going to give up on the search for the toddlers, they say. Our affiliate KERO has been following the story from the beginning. Here's some of their reporting on this heartbreaking cold case.
The Cal City community is still distraught over the 2 missing boys. There is now a new addition to the neighborhood. This is a small memorial, leaving candles and toys, hoping the toddlers come home safely.
We'll have to get together as a community and just try to help find these children ourselves and do the best we can.
With guns drawn, authorities enter the California City home of Trezell and Jacqueline West, the adoptive parents of 3-year-old Orson West and 4-year-old Orrin West. The parents told authorities their 2 boys disappeared from their backyard on December 21st and believe someone kidnapped them.
They do not just roam around, these patches. They definitely, I think definitely would have been picked up or something.
We have no way of knowing how they got out of the yard. Nothing that shows how they got out of the yard and if they wandered out of the yard.
California City Police Chief John Walker believes this is now more than just a missing persons case. He believes foul play was involved.
Someone knows. And I would hope that person would come forward.
And that's why Walker says authorities have paid so much attention on the couple's home, even digging up the backyard.
We're just trying to dig up anything, any clues that we can possibly find to find out where they had gone and also to confirm that they're not in the backyard.
Noise like jackhammering or roto hammering, like they were trying to dig through dirt or break concrete.
The adoptive parents gave their account of what happened, claiming that the 2 boys went outside to play with chalk while their adoptive mother wrapped their Christmas presents. Their adoptive father said that he left the gate open. When he realized the boys were gone, he began searching for them. The adoptive parents declined an interview today, saying police advised them to stay inside, leaving some to wonder why.
I would be nonstop looking if it was my child. He wouldn't even keep me inside.
200 volunteers who dedicated around 4 hours looking for any clues that could lead to the West boys' whereabouts. Some volunteers shared with 23 ABC that they walked nearly 5 miles canvassing the area. Amongst the group were the boys' biological mother,
if they find my kids, can they just give them back to me? Whatever I have to do to work on it, to get them. I have a home, I have a car, I have a job, I have money. It's nothing to provide for them. I come from a good background, as you can see, and I don't understand. I just want my babies. If they find them, just give them back to me, please. That's all I want.
Throughout the search, you could occasionally hear groups shouting and waving to law enforcement if they found something of interest. And if it turned out to be an item of possible significance, it was then taken in for analyzation. But there was one item they found that stood out.
Basically, what we found was a piece of or a gift bag with the name of one of the children on it. But being in such close proximity to the house, that's not super unusual. But it's something we definitely want to take a look at.
Although the boys have yet to be located and no arrests have been made or suspects named, this community says they will ensure the boys won't be overlooked.
From every neighbor you guys spoke to, not a single sight of them?
No. No.
When was the most recent that a neighbor cited they'd seen the kids?
None of the neighbors have seen the kids.
Ever?
No.
Despite search efforts that haven't turned up anything, neighbors are still trying to think positive during a dark time in this small community.
Hopefully, they'll find the children alive.
All right, I want to bring back in trial attorney Nicholas Fortuna. Nicholas, I have to start with something that I just heard at the end of that, and that is none of the neighbors have ever seen these children. That's what law enforcement said. Do you believe that that is really what he meant, or rather didn't see them after the last time they were allegedly seen 4 months ago?
It sounded like that they haven't seen them even prior to that. I mean, the situation is very suspicious. It would seem, the police should start investigating the people who knew the children. Anyone, friends, family members, biological family members of the adopted parents. It seems like that's the place to start, and move from there. There's just it doesn't seem to be any physical evidence of the existence of the children on that day or leaving the backyard. There's no witnesses. I guess there's video cameras in the neighborhood that they picked up on. Otherwise, they would have mentioned it. It's a tough case, but I would start with anyone who knew the children and investigate where they were on that day and maybe some prior days.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a tough case. But listen, they didn't disappear into thin air. And right now, it just feels like that's all they know is they've disappeared. So let's break that down a little bit. There were cadaver dogs. So one of my questions is, if cadaver dogs, let's just say, theoretically, it's correct that they were told they may have wandered into the desert. So let's say, theoretically, these two small children, 3 and 4, wandered into the desert and something happened to them there because of nature, whether it was the heat, whether it were animals. Cadaver dogs would most likely, I think, find some evidence of that. Would you agree with that or not?
Oh, sure. I think you're exactly right. In addition to that, how far can, 3 or 4-year-old children travel? One of the things I'd be questioning is, did they really disappear on the date the adoptive parents said, December 21st, or is that when they reported it? There's so many questions, so many areas of inquiry, and suspicion just circles around this case.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Do you agree foul play? Law enforcement did announce foul play is expected in this case. And interestingly, the adoptive parents, they say, are not coming out because the police have told them to stay put. Well, I think I might argue that the police may have said you need to stay put, but that doesn't necessarily rather mean that the police said you can't talk to anyone. So is that suspicious to you or not?
It would be suspicious. That's the way you would act if an attorney advised you should not speak to anyone, not make any statements because you're a target of the investigation. That's what I would take from that.
Oh, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. They would say don't talk to anyone. Do you agree there's foul play?
It seems like it. I mean, if they had just wandered off that day, it seems that they would have found the children or, as you said, found their bodies.
Yeah, it's really a tragic case. Anytime you have missing children, it really touches my heart. But if you look too at the environment, I mean, I would suggest that it is an environment where if children are by themselves at those young ages, there's a lot of land, a lot of places to go where certainly they may get lost or they may not be seen by others. But listen, you know, what I do love to see are the relatives and the neighbors who were out there challenging the family, because it means that people, the community, the family are still looking for these children, love these children, committed to these children. Look at the number of people there searching, the signs, where are the boys? These are all good indicators that not only were these children loved and cared about, but they have people that are still advocating on their behalf, looking for them, searching, investigating to find out exactly what happened. Mark my words, I really don't have any doubt. I cover a lot of cold cases. I really truly believe in my heart that something will be learned. We will know more eventually. Any last thoughts on this in terms of what needs to happen next, Nicholas?
Certainly, I think what you said is important because it keeps the pressure on to keep the investigation going. But I think what happens next after 4 months, the police are going to have to cast a wider net, look at more people, investigate other homes of people who knew the children, because it seems like foul play was involved.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Nicholas. Again, we're going to switch gears, and up next, sexual abuse claims against musician Marilyn Manson here on Court TV, your gavel to gavel coverage.
It's just so hard to know where the truth ends and then fiction begins.
New developments in the case of doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow and her husband Chad Daybell.
Authorities are still searching for Vallow's children.
How does she pose a threat to your children? I don't know what she's going to do with them.
Think about all the people that had to die and disappear.
Tell us where the kids are.
Nothing is coincidental.
This stretches just so beyond what anyone could imagine.
Investigators have recovered human remains at Chad Daybell's residence.
There's no way, Logan, I could ever come up with this.
This is no longer the search for missing children. This is the search for killers.
All eyes on this Idaho trial.
Lori was his follower. Chad Daybell's the prophet.
Chad had a vision, plagues, and foreign troops coming to the soil.
It's the doomsday couple, Chad and Lori Daybell, on trial.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott here with you this afternoon. Another one of Marilyn Manson's exes is coming out to tell her story against the goth rocker. Now, Ashley Morgan Smithline is one of the 15 women, including actress Evan Rachel Wood and Esme Bianco, who are accusing Manson of physical and psychological abuse. Smithline tells People magazine that she survived a monster. Court TV anchor Julie Grant has more on Manson's abuse allegations.
Rocker Marilyn Manson, whose real name is Brian Warner, released the song The Beautiful People in 1995. The song made him a household name, landing him the grand finale performance at the 1997 MTV Video Music Awards. The first lyrics of The Beautiful People reference domination and violence. Now, actress Evan Rachel Wood is claiming violence was part of her relationship with Manson. The actress taking to Instagram to expose who she says is a dangerous man, saying that he manipulated her into submission, horrifically abusing her for years. The star of HBO's Westworld previously spoke out about being a sexual assault and domestic violence survivor, but never identified the person or persons responsible.
Do you ever stop to wonder about the price you'd have to pay if there was a reckoning? That reckoning is here.
In February of 2018, Wood told the House Judiciary Committee about her experiences with rape, domestic violence, and PTSD as part of her push for the landmark Sexual Assault Survivors' Rights Act.
My experience with domestic violence was this: toxic mental, physical, and sexual abuse, which started slow but escalated over time, including threats against my life, severe gaslighting and brainwashing, waking up to the man that claimed to love me raping what he believed to be my unconscious body.
In May of 2019, Wood also testified before the California Senate, advocating for the Phoenix Act, which extended the statute of limitations in domestic violence cases.
Sometimes he would not allow me to sleep until I participated in acts of fear, pain, torture, and humiliation, which I felt powerless to stop.
After Wood's public accusation, the goth icon publicly responded on Instagram with an adamant denial, saying, quote, "Obviously, my art and my life have long been magnets for controversy, but these recent claims about me are horrible distortions of reality. My intimate relationships have always been entirely consensual with like-minded partners, regardless of how and why others are now choosing to misrepresent the past. That is the truth," end quote. 4 other women also took to Instagram, making claims that Manson abused them as well. Manson's former fiancée, actress Rose McGowan, showed her support on Twitter for the alleged victims. While Manson has not been criminally or civilly accused of any wrongdoing, his record label Loma Vista dropped him, and Starz is removing him from his remaining episode of American Gods.
Still with me, trial attorney Nicholas Fortuna. Nicholas, I have a lot to talk about on this case because, first of all, I did not know that Marilyn Manson's name was Brian Warner, so we'll start with that. But the second thing I want to talk to you about is 15 women have made allegations against him of abuse. Is it where there's smoke, there's fire?
You know, clearly, I mean, there are different ways to look at this. Clearly, these were very destructive relationships that he was having with the victims. And I would call them victims. In order to get a criminal conviction on these matters, it would be very difficult. They would have to show that his psychological abuse took away their ability to consent. And there's going to be times in the relationship where the women had enough space or time to think about this and still went back. Not to say that that wasn't the case. It just makes it very hard to get a criminal conviction. On the other hand, a civil case against him would be easier. The standard of proof is lower. The elements of consent don't necessarily apply to certain kinds of torts where there's injury that has occurred. So I see the women having better success against him civilly.
All right, so I know you just explained why you believe it would be hard to get convictions in a case, but given there are 15 women making these accusations, does it surprise you or not that at this point in time there are no criminal charges against him?
Well, the fact that there are 15 women is important, but in order to bring evidence of the abuse that he committed to another woman in a particular case, you have to show that the nature of the actions were so similar and unique that it rises to the level of habit, that he had a modus operandi that he followed day in and day out, or relationship to relationship.
Okay,
and
I'm going to stop you there, Nicholas, only because we need to take a break, but stay with us. We're going to continue to break it down as we get you caught up on Court TV's trial in Iowa. More on the jealous wife murder trial up next. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott. My privilege to be with you. We do have some breaking news that I want to share with you. The husband of missing Colorado mom Suzanne Morphew has been charged with murder nearly 1 year after she disappeared. Now, Suzanne was reported missing on Mother's Day of 2020, And her husband, Barry, posted a video on Facebook May 17th, almost 1 year ago, pleading for her safe return. Suzanne Morphew's brother, Andy Mormon, led a search party in September of last year, hoping to find his sister. The husband, Barry, did not join in the search. We are expecting a news conference on Morphew's arrest at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and Benny Politan will have the full breakdown of the story on closing arguments later tonight. Next, we're going to go back to Iowa. Court TV's trial live this week. Opening statements are expected to begin tomorrow in the jealous wife murder trial. This is the case in which Michelle Boat is accused of fatally stabbing her estranged husband's girlfriend. Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter joins us from Iowa covering the trial. And Chanley, the very first question I have to ask you is, we had expected perhaps opening statements today, but now it sounds like they might be tomorrow.
And that is true. In fact, the jurors are right now on a 20-minute afternoon recess, if you will. So they're stretching their legs all afternoon, and really before lunch is when the defense took over the general questioning of the pool of jurors. And we've heard standard questions about presumption of innocence, burden of proof, and moving on towards, can you be a fair and impartial juror? How much do you know about the case? Have you made up your mind about the case? Those types of questioning. And we have Jill Eimerman, one of the public defenders representing Michelle Boat, conducting the voir dire for the defense. She's also the one expected to give the opening statement for the defense, but it's likely that will happen tomorrow morning, as there still is no jury selected as of yet. It seems as though they're sort of reaching the end. They could wrap up here in a bit. The judge likes to end the day around 5:30 Eastern time every day, so we'll just have to wait and see. But even if they do have a jury today, we're going to probably have opening statements tomorrow. But I'm getting word that it could come to an end pretty soon after this recess. So we're going to be on standby to bring you the latest if we have a jury or not.
Excellent. I always appreciate that you are there live following all of the proceedings and all of the details. Now, speaking of proceedings, as a judge, I know that a lot of the yeoman's job of the work done by attorneys is done in preliminary motions and motions prior to court ever starting, to a jury ever being selected. So I'd like to speak with you first, Chanley, about voicemails, because there were voicemails between Michelle Boat and her husband, Nick Boat. So my question for you is, are those in or out, or do we know yet?
Yes, that is a big question, and we do know after taking it under advisement that they are out. But that's a big win for the defense, because here's what we know. We know that there's a defense motion. They tried to keep this out. There are 6 voicemails in total between Michelle Boat and her estranged husband, Nick Boat. These took place on March 14th between 8 and 9, and the defense argued that these were a part of the bad act evidence, apparently what she said, and they should be protected under spousal privilege. But if you look back at one of the violations of the no contact order, it goes into a little bit of detail about what maybe these voicemails entailed that happened. And one says she called her husband's work, leaving a message. It's clear from the message that she was aware of the no contact order. She said, "This is a stupid contact order." On a different message, she says, "This no contact order is crap." On another message, she says, "Please don't send me to jail." And she said that another thing about the no contact order. So again, that was in the violation affidavit, so they're just focusing on her language that she was aware she wasn't supposed to contact him and she was contacting him. But it gives us a little bit of an idea of what maybe those voicemails entailed. But before the judge made his decision, Ashley, he actually took it up between the attorneys in a pretrial hearing. Let's listen.
I do have one caveat of clarification that when we say we're stipulating to no witness needing to be called for the state for the purpose of establishing evidence in this matter was properly obtained, documented, transported to the DCI lab. I don't want that to supersede our objection to voicemail evidence that we filed on limine, that's because if we're asserting this privilege, then we're alleging it wasn't properly obtained. It is my caveat for that.
So the defense attorney expressing his concern, arguing that he filed a motion arguing spousal privilege. At that time, the judge wanted to do a little bit of his own research. Actually, he took a couple days, and now we know that those voicemails are out. The jury in this murder trial will not hear about those. Again, she has those other misdemeanor charges, the no contact order, that when that goes to trial, if it does, those, of course, will be in evidence.
All right, I think that is a big win for the defense. And I really appreciate that the judge took some time and actually had to do some research. You know, a lot of people will say to me, Judge, I'm sure you know. And I think, no, nobody knows everything. And so the reality is judges have to have the time to do the research to make the right decision based on the law. So it's nice to hear all those things are being followed, all those things are being done, especially by the attorneys making the argument. Now, the next piece, Chanley, I understand that you have some good information on, is about photographs. So we know that if they're prejudicial and that prejudicial value outweighs probative value, that they won't be allowed in. What is it in this case that we expect?
This was an interesting issue because we see in every criminal case almost a lot of photographs, but here these were particular photographs of the defendant herself. So in a motion in limine, the defense filed wanting at least 2 of those photographs out. They don't want the jury to see 2 photographs taken by the investigator of the defendant in the nude. There's one full length photo of her and then one more of a close-up type of photo. And they say this close-up photo showing an injury, apparently, according to this defense document, could be allowed. It should be allowed because it I guess, is close up enough where it's not as prejudicial. It doesn't show her private parts, if you will. So this was also talked about, though, because there's multiple other photos, I guess, that the investigator took, and they were trying to reach some sort of an agreement on how these photos could be edited so they aren't, like you said, so prejudicial. Let's listen.
One other thing, Your Honor, I don't know if we've talked about those photographs of Ms. Boat, or if the state was going to, but we reached an agreement on those two as to how they would be presented with some editing, I believe, as to 84. And I believe the state wasn't going to try to enter 83, which is a photograph of the defendant's front. So I would add that I think we've reached an agreement on that as well.
So actually, I'm really interested in these photos because they're going to be shown to the jury, but I know that at the beginning of this hearing, they actually stipulated to one photo. It may not be one of these two at issue that shows her right arm and that there is no injury on her right arm, but yet in this defense pretrial motion, the close-up photo they're talking about depicts some sort of an injury. And so I'm wondering, is that on the other arm or is that somewhere else? It's kind of unclear because she's alleged to have used a knife against Tracy Mondaba. Was it some sort of injury during that altercation? I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Absolutely. And I have to ask, do you have any sense of, so the defendant in the nude, I mean, obviously embarrassing, and if it's not relevant, it shouldn't be admissible, but any indication if it's really more of an embarrassment versus prejudicial to the defendant?
Aren't those kind of the same thing?
That's a good point. That's why I love being on with you, Chanley, because you're right. Those could be considered the same thing.
Yeah, it's we've seen this a lot throughout different cases that we cover here on Court TV when, investigators take photos of the defendant right after the crime happens. I remember covering Ezra McCandless' trial where she was convicted of stabbing her ex-boyfriend 16 times, and again, another knife type of crime, and they had to go through and edit a lot of the photos because she had some injuries that they wanted to show the jury during that. And so the argument for that was also prejudicial. So they went through and they edited a lot of the photos out. They, for example, sometimes they change the color of certain photos. They'll crop them into what's, relevant to the case, just so that those private areas aren't showing, because that can be distracting, right, to the jury. They may be distracted by something else and not really getting the point, or the picture, if you will, of what the prosecution is trying to show with the photo, or the defense is trying to show with the photo. So that seemed to be the line of argument here, is that why do we need to show Michelle Boat in the nude? Just this close-up of what this injury may be would be relevant enough.
And I think that's the distinction, right? So having to see a nude picture, of course, it's an embarrassment. I wouldn't suggest that it's not. However, it's whether or not that picture, in my mind, is necessary for the defense to put on a case, and if not, it can certainly be blown up, et cetera, for the injuries part. Thank you, Chandler. I always appreciate your updates. You're going to keep us posted about jury selection. Still with us now, we have trial attorney Nicholas Fortuna, and joining me now, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Daryl Cohen. Thank you both for staying with me, being with me, Daryl. Daryl, I'd like to turn to you first. You just heard about the evidence and the motions in limine filed and what the defense has accomplished. Do you think it's favorable to the defense and or will hurt the prosecution?
Well, Ashley, the answer is yes to both. It's very favorable to the defense, and it clearly, if it's favorable to the defense, it's going to hurt the prosecution. But let me go back to prejudicial. Every piece of evidence, whether put in by the prosecution or the defense, is supposed to prejudice the jury for either the defense or the prosecution. But yes, it's very favorable, very helpful to the defense, and we'll just see how this plays out after the jury hears opening statement and when the trial gets moving.
All right, thank you. Now, Nicholas, let me ask you about the spousal privilege. I think some view spousal privilege as a very black and white, straightforward. It either is or it isn't, and if they are married and have a conversation, it's protected. Is it that simple in your experience?
It's interesting. Yes, in my experience, the way it's been applied, it seemed pretty straightforward. The spousal privilege, the spouse can claim that privilege, so it can't be used against her or him in a trial in the circumstances. So I think the judge got the ruling correct in this case. And, the circumstance where it's not an element of the crime that she's being charged with, obviously those voicemails will be used in a situation where they are prosecuting her for the misdemeanors of the violating the no contact order, because it becomes an element of the crime. It's proof of the element of the crime that they charge. So in this circumstance, I think the judge got it right, and yes, it does seem to be kind of black and white as opposed to very nuanced in that analysis.
All right, Nicholas Terrell, I appreciate your expertise and that you are going to be staying with us. What we are going to see after the break, Derek Chauvin, convicted of murder of George Floyd, is seeking a new trial. We are going to break down the possible appellate issues and the latest developments in that case next. Here on Court TV Live, your front row seat to justice.
State of Minnesota, County of Hennepin, District Court, 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota plaintiff versus Derek Michael Chauvin, defendant. Verdict, count 1. Court file number 27, CR 20-12646. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:44 p.m. Signed, juror foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 2. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 2, third-degree murder, perpetrating an eminently dangerous act, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Signed by jury foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 3. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Jury foreperson 019.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott. Now, after just 2 weeks from the conviction of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin for the murder of George Floyd, his attorney Eric Nelson is asking for a new trial, arguing that Judge Peter Cahill made numerous mistakes in the handling of his trial. Very honored to have with me now to help break this down, Court TV legal correspondent Julia Janae. Julia, what is he alleging? And already it's just 2 weeks, 2 weeks. So what are the grounds?
Judge Ashley, there are a lot of things that are listed in this motion for a new trial. And the main thing that they're asking for is an order from the court saying that Judge Cahill abused his discretion. And that was in several different line items that are listed in this filing that came out yesterday. One of those being that they accused the judge of denying the defendant's motion for a change of venue, saying that was an abuse of discretion. Also, that the judge denied the defendant's motion for a new trial, saying that there was publicity during the proceedings that threatened the fairness of the trial. Also, when Judge Cahill failed to sequester the jury after the defense asked for it during the duration of the trial. Also, when the judge failed to allow one of the witnesses to testify, Maurice Hall, who was a passenger in George Floyd's vehicle, who pled the fifth, and the judge agreed that he did not need to be subpoenaed and did not need to take the stand. Defense attorney Eric Nelson also brings out some things that we didn't know about during the trial that weren't brought up on the record in front of us, that the problems with the instructions that the defense says the jury failed to accurately reflect the law with respect to second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and authorized use of force, the way those jury instructions were listed. Also, that the judge allowed or ordered the state to lead witnesses on direct examination is something that the defense says happened during the trial. Also, that the court failed to order that a record be made of numerous sidebars that occurred during the trial. We saw those sidebars happening in a unique way during this trial, with the headsets and the parties staying at their tables. And the defense is saying that numerous amounts of those were not on the record.
And do we know, Julia, what's next? I know that's been filed, what the time frames are for any response or next steps.
Well, we do. Now, it has been 2 weeks since the actual verdict in this case. And under Minnesota statute, that's the amount of time you have to get this done by. So let's first look at this. Verdict came down on April 20th, and the defense had 15 days with which to file that. Actually, let's talk about the impeachment, 'cause that's what we're showing on the screen now. There's another thing well, let's go back to the timeline. We'll roll with it, Judge Ashley. May 5th is when that motion for a new trial had to be served. So that's today, 15 days after that verdict. May 20th is when that motion for a new trial has to be heard. So within 30 days of the verdict. So that's when the judge will have to respond or hear those arguments on it. And there can be a 30-day extension, but someone has to request that. And we know that there's also something else pending. That's the June 25th sentencing date. It's not going to impact whether this motion for a new trial will be heard or not, but that is what we're looking at as far as the timeline and what's coming next in this case.
All right. There's so much to break down. I'd like to take an opportunity to listen now a little bit about Maurice Hall and the subpoena that you mentioned. Let's take a listen.
I had earlier said that possibly he could talk about how Mr. Floyd looked in the car, but counsel's argument is persuasive that that could provide a link. And since it's not just evidence that would incriminate a person, but also provide a link to incriminating evidence, I do find that his invocation of his Fifth Amendment rights is valid, and accordingly I am going to quash the subpoena.
All right, Julia, so Fifth Amendment right, subpoena quashed for Maurice Hall. That's one of the grounds. Let's just carry this forward, if we could, to the three co-defendants who are going to trial at this point. I believe August is the expected time frame. And Maurice Hall, do we know whether or not we expect him to claim the Fifth Amendment privilege again in that case?
Those trials for the three co-defendants, you see them there, former officers Tu Tao, Thomas Lane, and J. Alexander Keene, are scheduled to go forward on August 23rd is when their trial date is set for. And whether or not they would want to call Maurice Hall is yet to be seen, because they did not file witness lists in this case. We only got that from defendant Derek Chauvin. But if they do plan to call him, those grounds that the witness in this case had in front of the judge, it would be the same judge. So it's likely that Judge Cahill would rule the same way unless there is some kind of an appeal and decision before that trial goes forward. The witness in this case said that he would open himself up to self-incrimination if he took the stand, saying that he was in the car with George Floyd and there were accusations that he provided the drugs to Floyd that the defense argued were the cause of his death. So unless there was some kind of immunity that was provided to Maurice Hall by the prosecution, which they did not do in Derek Chauvin's case, it's likely that the same result would happen, that he would plead the Fifth and the judge would allow that subpoena for him to be quashed.
All right, so that deals with a witness issue. Now let's shift gears and talk a little bit more in depth about what you referenced in the jurors and jury selection and the questions on the questionnaire and whether or not a juror answered truthfully. Fill us in on that piece.
Right, well, we do have some new news that's been developing this week about one of the jurors who sat on the panel who actually has been speaking out just about his experience, Brandon Renee Mitchell. And another thing that has come out or come to light after he went public, which we know this jury was completely anonymous, so no one knew their names, and still the court has not released their names and does not plan to even look at this issue of releasing their identity until October of this year. But there's been a picture that has come out about Brandon Renee Mitchell that points to him being at a protest or a rally back in August of 2020. And that was a question on the jury questionnaire in this case, whether or not they had attended any police brutality rallies or protests in Minneapolis or specific to police brutality following the death of George Floyd. But the juror in this case, Brandon Mitchell, has let the Star Tribune know that this event that he attended was not about police brutality. He was pictured there. You see him in that picture that surfaced that he said was posted by his uncle, that he was not there related to George Floyd's death, but he was there because of the racial equality push that happens every year at that event, and that he would have gone regardless if George Floyd died in 2020 or not. So an issue that has really been talked about on whether or not this impacts the future of the case or future appeals in this case.
Absolutely. And let's take the opportunity to listen to a little bit of what he went through with the jury questioning when they were selecting the jury in the first place. And I don't think that we have that sound. I apologize, Julia. We're going to keep rolling with it again. And the thing that I do want to talk about is some of his quotes. And I know that you said one of the things he said was, listen, either way, I was going to go to D.C. for this event, even if George Floyd was still alive. And so I think part of what this boils down to is really looking at the letter of the jury questionnaire, exactly how the questions framed, whether or not it was an honest, truthful answer based on the question that was asked. And Julie Grant made a really great point yesterday, which is, as attorneys, sometimes attorneys forget to listen to the answers to then ask the next question or the follow-up. And so I do wonder in this case, it's going to be interesting to see if some of it was not listening completely and looking at the transcripts. Do you know, and I'm not sure if we have information yet about this, if the transcripts have already been completed so that Eric Nelson could use those in forming these arguments?
I will tell you that inside his notice of motions to the court that he asks for more time to fully brief the court on the issues that he raised in this motion for a new trial. And he says that there was a delay in getting the transcripts because this was such a long trial, it seems. So there may not be a final transcripts yet, or if he got them, they might have been very recent in time that he received them. So that is a big issue on what happened during jury selection, how those questions were answered. We, of course, have listened back to them here on Court TV, and we don't hear a specific question about whether or not he attended protests.
All right, so I want to bring back in trial attorney Nicholas Fortuna and criminal defense attorney Daryl Cohen, and we're going to go around the horn. Here's what I'd like to do. Daryl, if I could start with you, do you think that the jury should have been sequestered in this particular trial, one of the grounds raised by Eric Nelson?
Ashley, how many ways can you say without a doubt? Absolutely. This was a case of not local notoriety, not national notoriety, but international notoriety. And in the old days, as defined prior to social media, judges would sequester jurors, and the only thing they had to worry about was your newspaper, or your television. Now, the only thing you have to worry about is everything, every bit of social media that just oozes from everywhere. There was no way, in my view, that these jurors were protected from knowing what was going on outside of that jury room, outside of the courtroom. Absolutely.
All right, let me ask you, Nicholas, if I may, what about the change of venue? Venue was not changed. That was the decision of the court. Do you agree with that or not?
Generally, I agree with the leaving the case where it was. Just because a case has a lot of notoriety, and especially this case, it was everywhere. I don't think it would have made a difference. That the people that would have been in the jury pool would have been just as knowledgeable, just as active in the protests, no matter where they moved the case. So I don't think it would have made that much of a difference. Generally, courts loathe to move cases just because of that they were well known. So there has to be something more specific, other than a lot of community knowledge to require the case to be moved. So I agree with the decision.
All right. And Julia, could you please fill us in the sidebars? Do you recall during the trial, were there a lot of objections to the way that the sidebars were being conducted? I don't remember hearing that, but it sure doesn't mean that didn't happen.
There was no objection that I recall on the record of the process. Like I said, it was new. This was a COVID-19 safe way to handle the sidebars, where they weren't going up and huddling at the judge's bench. They were staying at their tables. And we could see the court reporter there. So I'm not sure if the accusation by the defense is that the court reporter never took down those sidebars, or if it's just that there were several sidebars, or numerous, as it's stated in this motion, that happened to not be on the record.
All right, Julia, thank you so much for breaking that down in such an easy way to understand. It's a lot going on 2 weeks after that conviction. Now, up next, the latest update on the officer who shot Rayshard Brooks. This is the individual who was shot in the Wendy's parking lot. You're not going to want to miss as we give you the latest news in that case. We'll be right back after this break.
It's just so hard to know where the truth ends and then fiction begins.
New developments in the case of doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow and her husband Chad Daybell.
Authorities are still searching for Vallow's children.
How does she pose a threat to your children? I don't know what she's going to do with them.
Think about all the people that had to die and disappear.
Tell us where the kids are.
Nothing is coincidental.
This stretches just so beyond what anyone could imagine.
Investigators have recovered human remains at Chad Daybell's residence.
There's no way, Lori, and I could ever come up with this.
This is no longer the search for missing children. This is the search for killers.
All eyes on this Idaho trial.
Lori was his follower. Chad Daybell's the prophet.
Chad had a vision, plagues, and foreign troops coming to the soil.
It's the doomsday couple, Chad and Lori Daybell, on trial.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott. So happy you are with us this afternoon. Moving to Atlanta, the firing of a former Atlanta police officer who's charged with murder has been reversed. Officer Garrett Rolfe was fired in June for the shooting of Rayshard Brooks. Now, Brooks, you may recall, is the victim that was shot in a parking lot at a Wendy's after he struggled with two officers, grabbed one of the officers' tasers, and then fled, firing it as Officer Rolfe as he ran. Court TV anchor Ted Rowlands has more on the story.
Both of your careers are definitely done because you just shot a man for no reason.
5 days after Rayshard Brooks was shot and killed by Atlanta police officer Garrett Rolfe, Paul Howard, the Fulton County District Attorney, announced an 11-count indictment against Rolfe, which includes felony murder.
The possible sentences for a felony murder conviction would be life without parole, or the death penalty.
According to District Attorney Howard, Rolfe shot Rayshard Brooks twice in the back as he was running away, with one of the bullets piercing his heart. A combination of available video, including police body cameras, shows Officer Brosnan approach Rayshard Brooks, who's asleep in his car in an Atlanta Wendy's drive-through line just after 10:40 p.m.
Come on, man. Hey, come in. Hey.
Officer Brosnan wakes Brooks up and asks him to move his car to a parking spot. A few minutes later, Officer Rolfe is on the scene, starting to question Brooks.
Your Honor, I just got something to eat. I went to visit my mother's gravesite. I'm not causing any problems.
Brooks is given a breathalyzer.
Just take a deep breath in, put your mouth over the mouthpiece, blow as hard as you can until you stop. Blow, 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 stop.
The officers then give Brooks a number of other field sobriety tests, and at this point, Brooks is doing everything he's told to do.
3, 4, 5.
Asking if he can just walk home.
I can walk home. I don't have to.
Why would you walk home?
I just don't want to be in violation of anybody. I can walk. My sister's house is right here.
Then everything changes when the officers decide to take Brooks into custody.
I think you've had too much to drink to be driving. Put your hands on your back for me. Here, put your hands on your back. Hey, stop fighting!
As Brooks begins to fight, there's a struggle over Officer Brosnan's taser.
You're gonna get tased!
Brooks wrestles the taser away and breaks free. Officer Rolfe gives chase with his taser in his right hand, but then, watch, he switches the taser to his left and draws his gun. Meanwhile, Brooks, while running, turns back and fires the taser he took from Brosnan at Officer Rolfe. Seconds later, Rolfe fires his handgun and Brooks falls to the ground. Brooks was taken to the hospital but died during surgery.
All right, still with me, trial attorney Nicholas Fortuna and criminal defense attorney Daryl Cohen. Gentlemen, first of all, you know, the thing I noticed more rather than not, we've got videos. And so you just saw the video of what happened. Nicholas, if I could start with you, how does that affect this case in your mind?
I think the video is determinative. You know, it'll you know, one way or the other. They brought an indictment. They have 11 counts against the officer, and the officer is chasing down the victim or the assailant and shooting him in the back. I think he has a real problem here with felony murder charge. I think that the officer is going to have a tough time fighting that charge with this video.
And Daryl, let's talk a little bit about the recent developments in this case, and that is that the officer being fired was reversed. And the reason, and now he's on administrative leave. And the reason is because, in part, the city failed to comply with several provisions of the city code, and they felt that he did not have a right to due process. So distinguish for us, please, that process and whether or not that feels fair or like justice versus the criminal charges.
Okay. Well, Ashley, the criminal charges could result in him being convicted of murder, having life in prison, with or without parole. That's the criminal. The civil charges they're really not charges, the civil actions go to the fact that he was fired summarily without being given his due process rights. That doesn't mean because he's been reinstated that it will stay that way. They will go through the process and have a hearing or 2 or 3, in which case they will say, yep, he should have been fired, he's done. Or, you know what, based on what we see, unless and until he's convicted, he is going to be reinstated. So there's a very big difference between what could take his life and incarcerate him forever vis-a-vis losing his job. Both could happen. One could happen or not.
And Daryl, when you watch this video and the facts you know about this case, what stands out to you? What thoughts do you immediately have?
Well, actually, it has always troubled me because just prior to that, there had been the use of a taser by a police officer, and Paul Howard, who lost his bid for re-election to Fonnie Willis, said a taser is a weapon, and therefore the police officer should not have used that weapon that could hurt or kill someone. And now, when this man is running, Rayshard Brooks is running at the scene and turns around and fires the taser, it's now not a weapon. I don't know whether it should or should not be, but I do believe that it should be consistent. If the police officer thought that he was in danger and this person is running away, then certainly they had a right to fire and protect themselves, not to apprehend, but to protect themselves. My question is, and the jury is going to likely have this, is it prudent? Was he correct in firing because he thought he was in danger, or was he doing it out of reckless disregard of his duties as a sworn police officer?
Right. I do think this is one where the jury's going to have their hands full making that decision. We'll have to wait and see, of course, what the evidence is and what the jury does. Now, gavel-to-gavel coverage means that Court TV goes around the nation. Next, we're going to look at an upcoming trial where 3 people are arrested in Florida for a triple homicide during a fishing trip. That's right up after the break here on Court TV Live. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott with you this Wednesday. Now, Damian Tillman, Kevin Springfield, and Brandon Rollins were planning a night of fishing when TJ Wiggins showed up with his brother Robert and his brother's girlfriend, Mary Whitmore. Wiggins allegedly approached Springfield and accused him of stealing his truck's engine and selling it. Authorities say that's when Wiggins opened multiple rounds of fire on all 3 men. Court TV's Ted Rollins has more on the story.
This is 26-year-old Tony T.J. Wiggins.
He's a thug. He's a criminal. He's pure evil in the flesh.
According to Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd, T.J. Wiggins was the trigger man in a bloody massacre, leaving 3 fishermen dead near the town of Frostproof, Florida. The victims, 23-year-old Damian Tillman, 27-year-old Brandon Rollins, and 30-year-old Kevin Springfield were best friends, getting together, as they often did, to go fishing.
What's more wholesome than 3 friends, 3 close friends, fishing together in Frostproof on a Friday night?
The night of the murders, Damian Tillman stopped by a Dollar General store before meeting his friends. Surveillance video shows him in line. Also in the store, T.J. Wiggins, his brother, 21-year-old Robert Wiggins, and T.J.'s girlfriend, 27-year-old Mary Whitmore. Tillman, according to investigators, told the clerk he was going fishing and that Kevin Springfield would also be there, which allegedly got the attention of T.J. Wiggins.
And T.J. says, "What? Kevin's going to be there?" So when they leave the store, TJ tells Robert, who's driving, go to the lake. Now, they had no plans to go to the lake until TJ told Robert, go to the lake. And they did.
All 3 friends had just arrived at the lake, sitting in 2 pickup trucks, one white, one red, when, according to Sheriff Judd, T.J. Wiggins pulls up with his brother and girlfriend.
He, being TJ, runs around between the red truck and the white truck. He points the gun at Kevin, and TJ says, "Where's my truck?" Kevin goes, "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yeah, you do. Where's my truck? You sold the engine out of my truck." Kevin said, "I don't know what you're talking about." At that moment in time, according to the information we've received, TJ hits Kevin. Damian starts to open the door of his vehicle and is screaming at TJ, "Put the gun away, put the gun away, put the gun away." TJ's out of control, screaming, "Where's my truck?" And he starts shooting.
At 10:06 p.m., just 10 minutes after Damian left the Dollar General, Brandon Rollins called his father for help. This is what Brandon's dad told WFLA.
When I got there, I was looking for my son. It was a mess. I found my son. I was holding him. He was telling me what happened, but I was too shocked.
All 3 men died at the scene. The Wiggins brothers and Mary Whitmore left the scene, and allegedly went to get food.
They immediately go to McDonald's in Lake Wells and order 10 double cheeseburgers and 2 McChickens. While they're standing in line, they go through the drive-thru. It's very quiet. TJ simply says, "We weren't there."
Robert Wiggins is cooperating with investigators. A search warrant turned up a 9mm shell casing found at the Wiggins home that matches one at the scene. Before this, TJ Wiggins, according to the sheriff, had 230 felony charges on his criminal record, dating back to when he was just 12 years old.
It's gut-wrenching. This is evil in the flesh. This is a guy who can hurt you just because it's the right thing for him to do at that moment in time with his 3 brain cells. He needs to receive a fair trial, the appropriate appeals, and then be executed.
All right, I want to bring in trial attorney Nicholas Fortuna and criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Daryl Cohen. Nicholas, Daryl, the law enforcement story, as he was giving that information to the public, I was on the edge of my seat and I thought, listen, the way he told that story would be a good way for a prosecutor to present the case to the jury. Nicholas, what are your thoughts?
I agree. It was compelling, and he'll make a good witness for the prosecution. He's a good storyteller. He pieced it together in a logical order. So you felt the emotion. So I was on the edge of my seat as well.
Daryl, what are the best ways when you have multiple individuals involved, right? You've got the brother, you've got him, his brother, his girlfriend in a car, you've got 3 friends, you've got a conversation about a truck engine. What is the best way to present evidence to the jury to easily understand who each player is and how they're related or what the relationship is between each of the players?
So Ashley, assuming there's no plea, assuming there is a trial and all 3 defendants are tried at the same time, you want to use the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid, keep it short, stupid. Make it into a story that very compelling as the elected sheriff made it, who concerns me, by the way, because he may have tainted a possible jury pool by going with this story. That is another time and another place. So you keep it simple, and you also do the best you can. With the greater the possible penalty, the more likely one or more of those 2 defendants are going to roll and tell the truth and testify against the second or third defendant.
So from what we know right now, TJ is the one most responsible for this, who told his brother to go there and then said we weren't there after the fact. I believe that, therefore, a defense attorney would want to ask that these cases be separated. Let me start with you, Daryl, if I could.
I would want it separated. I want them to be tried separately. If I am representing one of those people, I do not want her or one of the 2 brothers to be tainted by the other defendant, especially TJ Wiggins, because if I am being tried, I'm going to be hanging on to his coattails. And anything that happens to him, anything that he made happen, is going to taint my client, and I'm going to want as best I can to separate my client and make my client not into an angel, but certainly not the devil that TJ Wiggins is.
All right. And Nicholas, I know that you are going to be leaving us. I'd like to give you the last word in the last 30 seconds, your thought on this trial.
I think I agree. I think that defense attorney would want to separate them, and I think if the prosecutor is going to use the statements made by the individual defendants, they will be separated by the judge. It'll be the prosecutor's choice whether or not to use the statements made. We know that Robert Wiggins made some statements against TJ Wiggins, so that's going to be an issue to be determined by the court if the prosecutor decides to use those statements.
Absolutely. Nicholas Fortuna,
Yes.
trial attorney, thank you so much for being with us. Up next, we will
Thank
get you
you.
caught up on the latest in today's jury selection in the jealous wife murder trial out of Iowa. We'll be right back here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott, always honored to be with you. We are still covering the case in Iowa, where jury selection continues. Now, this is the jealous wife murder trial, where Michelle Boat is accused of fatally stabbing her estranged husband's girlfriend, Tracy Mundabaugh, on May 18th last year in 2020. Pella police officers found Mundabaugh slumped in her car when they responded to a call regarding a possible domestic dispute. Boat was arrested and charged with violation of a no-contact order and first-degree felony murder. Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter has more of the story.